internet, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Stepiphany, goofy as always, and back here with another message. When I started recording today, I was feeling pretty crummy. Almost didn't feel like it, almost gave up and said, how can I channel when I'm feeling things? How can I be inspiring when I'm feeling low? And I'm going to keep saying it as I record today, because I think it's really important that we realize that, we're not always going to feel good. We're not always going to feel like doing it. And in fact, where we meet the most resistance is often where we should be doing the thing. 4-4 on the timer as I said that, sorry. So, it's easy to go to work. I mean, it's not easy to go to work. Of course, we often, begrudge and moan our obligations and our chores and our duties in our life too. But it's easy to do it because we can justify it. I go to work to get paid. I need money to live. Therefore, no matter how I feel, I will do it. But it's somehow so easy to talk ourselves out of doing things if the reason is not money. And here's a honk for confirmation. What if the reason wasn't money? What if the reason was because you want to? Can you justify to yourself doing the things that you want to do, that you feel called to do, that interests you, that make you happy? Can you justify doing them if you weren't getting paid, or if no one was clapping for you or cheering? Why is it so easy to do things that we don't want to do for other people, but it's so hard to find that motivation or stamina or bravery to do the things that we want to do for ourselves? That's something to think about, something that I've been thinking about, and something that is motivating me to sit here in my car in random places, waving to the people who are looking at me as they go by, and just say fuck it a little sometimes. Just do the thing you want to do. And like I said, I started, recording a few videos ago, 222 on the timer. That's being on the right path, making the right choices. I started feeling crummy and I almost wanted to quit. But I didn't, and I'm here, and now I'm laughing again. Now I'm happy again. And the reason I felt crummy is because my son really didn't want to go to preschool today. And I hate to see him upset. I hate it. As I left, I was bawling my eyes out, screaming, I fucking hate this. Excuse my spoken word. I don't say French because it's not French, and I'm not ashamed of my language or my words. So there you go. But yeah, so those were just my thoughts to get started. And a yellow a lifting crane just went by. That's what my son would say. Oh, look, it's a lifting crane. Huge one, a huge yellow lifting crane. I'm wearing yellow. The theme of the day has been courage. The messages today have all been about uplifting, pulling yourself out of a rut, reaching up for the stars, trying to ascend yourself out of low feelings and situations that just aren't the vibe anymore. So yeah, with all that being said, I'm going to be pulling from the fairies oracle deck today. I feel a message from the fairies. I'm sitting in the beautiful wilderness here in the sunshine, and I have some crystals around, and the rainbows are kind of sparkling around me, and it always gives me a sense of something magical. I like to believe that the spirit realm, you could say, whether it's your ancestors, your angels, fairies, unicorns, whatever magical things that you love to believe in, that they exist all around us, whether or not we see them. Just the same way a rainbow is always there in the sky, even if the water droplet hasn't refracted. Just the way that ultraviolet light is always there, even if your eyes can't register it, right? Even just the same way that, dogs can hear sounds in a higher frequency than we can. We know for a scientific fact that there are things, sounds, colors maybe, frequency waves that exist, light waves that exist, scientifically proven, but that we cannot perceive. So I like to believe that the fairies and the supernatural creatures of all sorts might just exist in the ultraviolet spectrum. They're there all the time. They're there around us. And if we could see them, we would. So that's just my little take on that. But anyways, let's see what the fairies have to say right now. I'm leaving this open-ended. As always, these are just my thoughts as I sit here talking to my own self. If something is interesting to you or sparks a thought or makes you wonder about something, then wonderful. If no one ever sees this and I'm just talking to myself, then that's honestly totally fine too, because I'm the lifting crane and I'm hooking my own self up and I'm pulling myself up. And I'm doing things that I thought I would never do. And I'm becoming more confident, talking to my own self, even though I still don't look in the camera, guys. It's probably never going to happen, okay? My own face on the screen is too distracting. But I'm doing it, okay? So I'm doing it. So there you go. Let's see what the fairies have to say for us today. This is a beautiful deck. Fairies and folklore sort of stories from different cultures. So we'll see if I end up reading from the book today. Oh, here we go. Ring around the fairies. Here we go. So here we go. We have 3 fairies. They're sitting around 3 candles and they're surrounded by mushrooms. This has very 3 of Cups kind of energy to me, from the traditional tarot deck, but also 3 of Wands because of the firepower. I just remembered too, there's actually a very interesting alignment. I think Venus is in Aries, and it's making I forget what conjunction it is, but it's conjuncting in some capacity towards Mars, which is in Leo. So the way that they're sort of sitting around this circle, those are both fire signs, Aries and Leo. They're sitting around a fire, and it's a fairy circle. They're holding hands and they're meditating together and they're channeling together, and they're in communion and in union, which is why it's a very 3 of Cups energy to me, which shows me that, just as I was saying, we're always surrounded. Like, look at this. We're always surrounded. Let's say we're here in the middle. This is me in my bright yellow shirt, shining my little light in this world, making the dog walking lady have a little chuckle when she sees me, and, just being a presence here in the world, shining this little light of mine is shining. And we're always being surrounded. We're always encircled. We're never alone. And even though we can't see or maybe consciously feel the arms, whether it's our ancestors, past on loved ones, angels, fairies in this case, the warmth is there and the energy is there, and we are being enveloped at all times. So the other thing that I really see here is the mushrooms, the toadstools, and it's the autumn right now in New Zealand, and we've been getting some rain. It's actually been fairly sunny the last couple of weeks, which is amazing. But after a couple of days of rain, you really can find some funky mushrooms out in the bush or even just out in the grass. And it's funny because I always tell my son, the fairy circles the mushroom circles are where the fairies have been dancing or playing or gathering together. And this isn't my myth. I think I actually read it out of this book when I was flipping through these cards originally. But the mushrooms themselves are such an interesting thing. If you haven't seen this, you should definitely look up the mushroom music, and how if you connect, I don't really know technology, but if you connect, a sound making or capturing device, a synthesizer, to a mushroom, you can actually pick up the frequencies, the energetic frequencies that they're giving off, and turn that into sound, into music. And another sense, it's sounds that are there energetically in vibration, that are always there. The mushrooms don't start singing because we're listening, right? It's energetic frequencies or impulses or signals that are being given off. The plants and the trees communicate with each other. The creatures and the birds communicate with each other, and if you're willing to believe it, beings from other dimensions and angels and past on loved ones can communicate with us in some capacity, even if they're not, even if we can't see them with our eyes, right? We can feel their energy, we can feel their presence, even if it's just, sometimes I think of my grandma when I see a certain type of flower, or and it doesn't even have to be real characters. Sometimes I think of, what will Dumbledore have said in this moment based on this jelly bean I'm eating, right? And this is all channeling, if you think about it. This is all connections being made energetically, vibrationally, and frequency in our own brains. Our own synapses and nerves are firing, and we've just entered Gemini season, which is ruled by Mercury, which is all about the neurons and the neurons firing in our brain. Actually, I had this this channeling that came to me the other night of making neural connections, right? Connecting dots and thoughts that in ways that haven't been done before, or not very commonly, or expanding your consciousness in that sense. So the image here is, we've all done this if we're millennials, but you open a blank document on Microsoft Paint and you just make a whole bunch of squiggly lines, right? And you can choose different colors and fill it in and what have you. But this is sort of the image I have of your brain, what's happening inside your brain. So thought association starts to connect these different points, these different experiences, memories, feelings, people's faces, different sounds. And you can draw as many lines connecting as many points as your thoughts have connected those things, right? So that's why thought association games are so great for your brain, because they build and expand upon neural pathways, right? So look into that if that's something that you need a little bit more research on in terms of what I mean, because I know I'm not explaining it very well. But the interesting thing for me is that you can never really be done, right? So let's say you have your page and you scribble all your dots and you make all your lines, and then you look at the page and you say, okay, that's it. The page is full. There's not any more space to make any new connections. Well, that's not true, because you can scroll down in the corner and you can find that little, that little dot, and you can stretch it on out, and suddenly now you have blank space around the drawing, more space. You can add more things, and you can add more connections, and you can, expand upon what you already have. So to me, I've spent most of my life in just the regular screen, trying to connect logical thoughts with logical things, trying to connect, concrete experiences, things that I've seen and touched and remembered, with other things that can be explained and identified. But when it comes back around to the fairies, the circle of, maybe it's ultraviolet light that is always around us. The only way that you can add that perception into your consciousness is if you are willing to scroll down to the corner and expand it, right? You have to expand your consciousness to allow for things, experiences, ideas, colors, memories, messages, channelings, whatever it may be. You have to expand your consciousness to allow space for things that don't fit into the original size and shape of box, which is just your logical, rational mind. So, once you expand that space and put it next to whatever you had before, maybe you keep, making dots, and maybe that can be something as simple, not as simple, but as, logical, staying in the logical stream, and say, go read a book you've never read before. Go get, you've always wanted to learn about dinosaurs. Go get a book on dinosaurs. And now suddenly you can fill in that white space around with facts about dinosaurs. Don't dinosaurs kind of look like chickens? Chickens lay eggs. What came first? And you can sort of, again, reconnect and add and strengthen in neural connections from whatever new information you can put in that space. It could be, look up your family history and get to know more about your genealogy, the whakapapa, as they say it here in New Zealand, right? Where did you come from? Who did you come from? And what are their stories? And you can fill in some more things. Oh, I actually have, my hair comes from my great grandmother's side, or I have, this person, my mother was the one who was so into musical theater. That must be why I love singing, or whatever it is, right? But also, if you're willing to, this is the space outside of the original box where you can expand your consciousness and say, okay, what would the fairies tell me? If the fairies were real, If they were real, that's a leap, I know, for many, and for me for a long time. But if it was true, how would it go? And maybe for a long time, that is just a dot in the corner and you haven't made any connections to anything else. But then you have another dot that says, okay, what if angels exist around me? What would they say or do? Or, if Dumbledore was a real person, boop, there's a dot. What would he say and do? And the more dots you plot on your scattered chart, wow, that's some grade 11 math that I didn't know was still there in my, my logical brain. But you plot the dots, see where they are, and then you can find ways to connect them. And the more you cling to what you know, the more you try to force those dots to fit back into the original drawing. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it doesn't jive. Maybe you've changed colors. Maybe there's too much going on over there that doesn't work. But sometimes if you just relax and flow and just open your mind and just allow that not everything is as it seems, or that it's possible that there are some things that you cannot see, right? And even starting with hypothetical games like that can allow you to connect thoughts and ideas and feelings and assign them a place in your neural map. And again, it doesn't necessarily constitute proof, right? Just because I've made connections in my mind, it doesn't mean suddenly now I can prove to you that something exists or that something is real. But if I can expand my own consciousness and connect those dots in my mind, then at the very least what I've done is exercise my brain, right? And that's never a bad thing. So yeah, I hope that was interesting. And as far as the fairies go, I think they're just saying that they're here, they're around us. They do exist around us. I mean, even if all you're willing to say is they exist in movies, they exist in stories, they exist in childhood dreams, that's still a form of concrete existence around us. So allow yourself to embrace the things you can't see. Allow yourself to play what if games in your own curiosity, and you might be surprised. You might be surprised at how you feel, and you might be surprised about the hug, right? This is giving me like a big hug from the fairies. The fairies are sending you a hug today. So there you go. Whether you believe it or not, you've been hugged by the fairies. I hope this message has resonated for somebody, or sparked a thought or an idea, or connected some neurons, or scribbled in some new expanded consciousness blank page space. If so, please feel free to leave a comment, follow along for more, and I'll be back in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.